Have you ever like felt overwhelmed when you're trying to learn something new, especially something as big as business is? You know, you start reading and it's like a tidal wave of information, books, articles. Like, how do you even know where to start?
Oh, you know exactly what you mean. You just end up feeling completely swamped. And that's exactly why we are doing this deep dive.
Right. We're going to distill this down to the essentials, the things that actually matter.
Exactly. Like finding the wheat from the chaff, as one of the sources put it.
I love that. And actually, speaking of sources, the core of this deep dive is going to be a book called The Personal MBA by Josh Kaufman.
Okay.
And what I like about this book is it promises to give you this complete and practical understanding of business, whether you've got any background in business or not. And you don't need to spend, tens of thousands of dollars and years in school.
Right.
Because let's be honest, a traditional MBA, that's a pretty huge commitment.
It is.
But this book has actually been praised by some really smart people, by the way.
Oh, yeah.
Like James Clear.
Oh, wow. From Atomic Habits.
The Atomic Habits guy,
Yeah.
exactly. And Shane Parrish from Farnham Street. See, there's some real credibility here.
Absolutely. Those are some big names.
Big names. And the thing is, so many smart people, when they think about starting a business, they feel this, like, pang of imposter syndrome.
Oh, yeah.
Like, oh, I don't know enough. But the book really emphasizes that, like, businesses, right, they're not built by these, like, mythical creatures with some special knowledge. It's normal, everyday people.
Right.
Who learn and apply some core concepts.
Yeah.
So that's what we're going to try to do in this deep dive today. Like, dig into some of those core mental models, tackle common misconceptions, like this idea that you need this, like, 100-page business plan and a massive loan to get started.
Totally.
So we'll pull out some practical principles that you can start using right away.
Okay, so let's get into this. So one of the things that I think is interesting about this book is the author decided to actually educate himself instead of going for a traditional MBA.
Yeah.
Like, he spent a ton of time reading across all these different subjects.
Yeah.
Really going deep.
Right. And not just reading. Yeah. He had real experience working at P&G, Procter & Gamble, big corporation.
Okay.
And he talks about, like, 3 key realizations during that time that really solidified this idea for him, that self-education was the way to go.
Yeah.
So the first thing, like, he saw just how slow big companies can be.
Makes sense. Bureaucracy and all that.
Bureaucracy, yeah.
Yeah.
Great ideas just get bogged down.
Yeah.
And second, he realized that climbing the corporate ladder, can actually prevent you from doing meaningful work.
Interesting.
Because you get so focused on the internal politics as opposed to, like, the actual results.
Oh, I see.
And then the third thing was just the frustration and burnout.
Yeah.
That can come with that environment. I'm sure a lot of people listening can relate to that.
Oh, yeah. Feeling stuck, hitting a wall. I've been there.
Yeah. And this all kind of leads to the book's pretty direct challenge to the value of an MBA.
Okay.
So first of all, like, the cost, right? The book cites an estimate from Wharton that an MBA could have a negative financial return over 10 years.
Oh, wow. Really? Is it negative?
Negative.
It's like anti-value.
Anti-value.
So they're saying, like, the tuition and the lost wages and the increased cost of living.
Basically, it's like you're going into debt.
And spending a decade just trying to get back to where you started.
To even.
Wow.
Right. And it's not just about that initial financial hit. The book argues that an MBA doesn't guarantee a higher lifetime income.
Huh. Interesting. I mean, I guess that makes sense.
Right.
You're not automatically a millionaire just because you have the degree.
Right. And you have this massive debt, potentially. So what is business success even? And the book kind of challenges the idea that the only way to be successful is to, like, be a top executive.
Oh, right. At a big company. Because there are so many trade-offs. You end up working crazy hours, your relationships suffer.
Yeah, for sure. It's not for everybody.
Right. And so after all of this, the book kind of asks this really basic question. It's like, okay, well, what is a real business?
Yeah, back to basics.
What is it? And it breaks it down into 5 parts.
Oh, okay.
So first of all, a business creates and delivers something of value.
Okay.
Second, it has to be something people want.
Makes sense.
Third, they have to be willing to pay for it.
Okay.
At a price that makes it worthwhile for you.
Right.
Fourth, it has to actually satisfy their needs.
Okay.
And fifth, it has to generate profit.
Right.
If any one of those things is missing, it's not really a business. It might be a hobby or a nonprofit.
A charity. Yeah.
Something else.
Okay. I like this 5-part definition.
Right.
It's clear.
It's simple, but like
It covers everything.
it really lays it out. And then from there, it goes on to talk about what it calls economically valuable skills. Oh, okay. What are those?
These are the skills that actually help create the value.
Okay.
Market it, sell it, deliver it.
So like the practical skills you need to make that 5-part definition work.
Exactly.
Okay.
Manage the finances to ensure the profit. And these are the skills that matter in any industry.
Right. That makes sense. Yeah.
Not just specific to one type of business.
Right.
So you've got a definition of business, and now you're maybe thinking about starting one.
Yeah.
Or improving one. So where do you begin? And that's where this idea of the iron law of the market comes in.
The iron law of the market. That sounds pretty serious.
It is. It's basically saying that the market you choose is by far the biggest factor in your success, even if you have the best team in the world and an amazing product. You're going to struggle in a bad market.
Yeah. So no matter how good you are, if nobody wants what you're selling,
it's not going to work.
It's a non-starter.
It's not going to work. It's like trying to sell ice to Eskimos. Classic example, right?
Exactly. No matter how good your ice is.
The book really stresses focusing on making things that people want.
Okay.
Like actively want to buy.
So it's not enough to just have a good idea. It has to be a good idea that people are willing to pay for.
Exactly. It even suggests another book, The New Business Road Test, as a resource for figuring out promising markets.
That makes sense. Front load that effort so you don't waste time later.
Exactly. Now, to figure out what people want to buy, you have to understand what drives them, their desires. So the book talks about what it calls the 4 core human drives.
The 4 core human drives. Okay.
And these have been identified by researchers at Harvard Business School.
Interesting. So this is like legit research.
It's legit research. So first, we have the drive to acquire. So this is just the basic desire to obtain things, physical possessions, status, even power.
Okay. Makes sense. We all want stuff.
We all want stuff.
Yeah.
Then there's the drive to bond. And this is our need for connection with other people.
Right. To feel like we belong.
Yeah. To feel loved and valued
Right.
through relationships.
Okay.
Then there's the drive to learn. And this is just our natural curiosity, right?
Yeah.
Our desire to understand how the world works.
Right. And to grow as people, learn new things.
Exactly. And then finally, we have the drive to defend, which is our instinct to protect ourselves, our families, our resources.
From threats. Yeah.
Yeah. So all sorts of businesses connect with one or more of these drives.
I see. So you're saying like understanding these drives can help us see why people buy things.
Exactly.
Interesting. Okay. So let's say you've got a business idea. You think it connects with these core drives. How do you actually assess if it has potential?
Okay, so the book has a framework for this. 10 specific criteria to consider.
10 criteria. All right, let's hear them.
So first you look at the value that your business promises to deliver.
Okay, the value proposition.
Exactly. Then the time it's going to take to actually get it off the ground.
Makes sense.
The money it's going to require.
Yeah.
The risks involved.
Yeah.
How hard it is to execute. The cost of delivering the value.
So like not just the upfront cost, but the ongoing costs too.
Right. Ongoing costs. And then how unique is your offer compared to everyone else?
Okay, your competitive edge.
Right. How fast you can bring it to market. The initial investment. The upsell potential. Like, can you sell more to existing customers?
Okay.
And then, does this have evergreen potential? Meaning, will it still be relevant over time?
That's a great list. A lot to think about.
Right. It's a good checklist. So you can be honest with yourself before you go too far down a path. Now, the book also talks about 2 different primary motivations people have for starting a business.
Oh, okay. What are those?
So there's the mercenary approach, and this is where the main goal is profit, financial profit.
Right, just making money.
Making money. And then there's the crusader approach.
Yeah.
Which is driven by passion for an idea or a cause.
Okay, so like wanting to make a difference.
Yeah, wanting to change the world.
Got it.
And while passion is great, the book cautions against letting your passion completely blind you to the financial realities.
Yeah, that makes sense. At the end of the day, you need to be able to pay the bills.
Exactly. So let's talk about the different ways you can create and deliver value. The book lists 12 standard forms of value.
12. Wow. That's a lot.
It is. Do we need to go through all 12?
Maybe not all 12. Can we just hit on a few key ones and how they might, like, be combined?
Yeah, absolutely. So you have, like, the obvious ones. Offering a product, providing a service. But then there are things like creating a shared resource that people can use.
Okay, like a co-working space or something.
Exactly. Or like a gym, a subscription for ongoing access to something.
Like software or a streaming service.
Yeah, reselling existing products, leasing assets, acting as an agency, building an audience aggregation.
So like a blog or a podcast with a big following.
Right, providing education, offering capital in exchange for ownership, providing insurance against risk, and even betting.
Betting. I wouldn't have thought of that.
Yeah, it's a broad range.
It is.
But what's really interesting is this idea of modularity. So you can combine these different forms of value in creative ways to create these really unique offerings.
Oh, I see. So like a business could offer a product, but also a service contract to go with it.
Exactly. Like Legos.
Oh, I like that analogy. Different pieces that you can put together.
Right. And so many different ways you can put them together.
That's cool. It's like you're creating something custom for your customers.
Right. So let's say you have an idea. You've thought about these different ways to deliver value. How do you figure out if it's going to work in the real world?
Yeah, you don't want to spend a bunch of time and money on something that's not going to fly.
Exactly. And this is where the concepts of critical assumptions and testing come in.
Okay. Tell me more about that.
So every business idea rests on some key assumptions.
Yeah.
Things that have to be true.
Right, like if these assumptions are wrong, the whole thing falls apart.
The whole thing falls apart. So you have to test them in the real world before you invest too much.
So how do you do that?
So one of the best ways is what the book calls shadow testing. And this is basically selling your product or service before it's even fully developed.
Wait, really? You can do that.
As long as you're upfront with customers.
Yeah.
Let them know it's still in development.
So it's like a pre-order kind of thing?
It could be,
Okay.
but the idea is to gauge their willingness to pay. Because nothing validates an idea like someone putting down their hard-earned cash.
Yeah, that makes sense. Money talks.
Right.
So what's another way to test your idea?
So once you actually have something launched, there's what the book calls incremental augmentation. And this is about making these small tested changes over time to improve what you're offering.
So it's like not making huge sweeping changes, but just tweaking things a little bit at a time.
Exactly. And that way, if something doesn't work,
You can roll it back easily.
yeah, so not a disaster. And then there's field testing.
Field testing.
So this is like using your own product
Oh, I see.
as the best way to identify areas for improvement.
Okay.
Book is an example of Patrick Smith from Kifaro International. This guy makes outdoor gear. And he literally lives in the wilderness using his own products.
Oh, wow. So he's like his own test subject.
Yeah, like who's going to know better what needs to be improved.
Right.
And it makes you think about how car companies test their cars
Yeah, on real roads
in all sorts of conditions.
to see how they perform.
Exactly. So you've developed something of value. You've validated that people want it. The next challenge is getting people to actually notice it.
Right. That's where marketing comes in.
Marketing. And the book makes a point that you don't need to appeal to everyone.
Yeah, trying to please everybody is usually a recipe for disaster.
It is. It's about focusing on the right people,
Okay.
the ones who are most likely to care.
Makes sense. Target your audience.
Target your audience.
Mhm.
And to do that effectively, you first have to understand your customer's level of awareness.
Level of awareness. Okay.
So are they completely unaware that they even have a need that your product or service could address?
Okay.
Are they problem aware? Meaning they know they have a problem, but they haven't considered solutions yet.
Right.
Are they solution aware?
Mhm.
Meaning they know there are solutions out there, but they aren't familiar with your specific product.
Okay.
Or are they already product aware? And they just need that last little nudge to buy.
I see. So like depending on where they are in that awareness spectrum, you'll tailor your message accordingly.
You have to tailor your message. And it's not always enough to just tell people about the benefits. Sometimes you have to show them.
Demonstration.
Demonstration.
Yeah.
So like the book tells this really interesting story
Okay.
about the opening of the Brooklyn Bridge.
Oh, yeah.
When it first opened. People were afraid to walk across it
Really? Why?
because it was this new technology. They didn't trust it.
Oh, I see.
So they had to do these public demonstrations to show that it was safe.
Interesting. So it's like seeing is believing.
Exactly. And then there's this idea of qualification as a marketing strategy.
Qualification. What do you mean by that?
So like the example of Progressive Insurance. They don't try to insure everyone.
Right.
They specifically target people who are likely to be safer drivers.
Ah. So it's about attracting the right kind of customer, not just any customer.
Exactly. And that ties into this idea of addressability.
Addressability. Okay, what's that?
It's how easy it is to reach your target customer.
Oh, okay. So like if you're selling yoga classes, it's easier to reach people who live near your studio.
Right. As opposed to trying to reach, I don't know, farmers in rural Nebraska.
Yeah, makes sense.
Different levels of addressability.
So it's about understanding who your target is and how to best get in touch with them.
Exactly.
Mhm.
And ultimately, the goal of marketing isn't to force people. It's to help them convince themselves.
Oh, that's a good point. It's about meeting them where they are.
Yeah, and helping them see how what you're offering
Yeah.
can help them achieve their goals.
Right.
Or satisfy those core drives we talked about.
Exactly. So you're not manipulating them, you're guiding them.
Exactly. And there are specific tactics you can use to grab people's attention,
Like what?
like visualization,
Okay.
making your offer tangible.
So they can picture themselves using it.
Exactly. And the power of free offers, providing genuine value up front.
Like a free trial or something.
It could be a free trial,
Yeah.
a free sample, something
Yeah.
to give them a taste
Right.
without any risk.
Yeah.
And it's important to make a distinction between permission-based marketing,
Okay.
where people have opted in,
Hmm.
versus just spamming everyone.
Yeah, nobody likes spam.
Nobody likes spam. It's about building trust.
Right.
And every good marketing message needs a clear call to action.
So like tell them what to do next.
Exactly. Sign up for the email list,
Right.
buy the product, whatever it is.
Yeah.
And the book talks about the power of narrative
Yeah.
and storytelling.
Oh, yeah, that's huge.
Right.
Stories stick with people.
Yeah. Especially if it follows the classic hero's journey structure.
I see. It makes your offer more engaging.
More engaging, memorable.
Yeah.
And it even talks about how you can strategically use controversy to get attention.
Oh, okay.
But you have to be careful with that.
Yeah, you don't want to alienate potential customers.
Exactly. But ultimately, the most effective marketing is your reputation,
Your reputation.
your track record of delivering value
Right.
over time.
Okay, so you've got people's attention, they're interested. How do you actually turn them into paying customers?
That's where sales comes in.
Yeah.
And the book starts with a really simple statement. Every successful business sells something.
Well, yeah, that's kind of the point, isn't it?
It is. You can have millions of interested people, but if none of them buy anything,
You're not in business.
you're not in business. And a big part of sales is negotiation, which the book describes as finding common ground.
Okay, so like finding a win-win solution.
Exactly. And when it comes to pricing, there's what the book calls the pricing uncertainty principle. And this basically means customers need a reason to believe that your price is justified.
Yeah, you have to give them a reason to believe your product is worth the price tag.
Right. And that reason could be based on value or scarcity, like the Hope Diamond.
Right, it's just a rock, but it's worth millions because it's so rare and has such a unique history.
It's the story, the history. The book mentions a few different pricing methods: cost plus pricing, value comparison, discounted cash flow analysis. And there's this really interesting point that sometimes raising your prices can actually increase demand
Wait, what? How does that work?
because you attract a different type of customer.
Oh, I see. People who associate higher prices with higher quality.
Exactly. And that ties into this idea of value-based selling. So you're really reinforcing the reasons why your offer is valuable to the customer.
Okay, so it's not just about listing features, it's about explaining the benefits and why those benefits matter to the customer.
Exactly. And there's also education-based selling. So
Yeah.
you're investing time and effort in making your customers smarter about the problem you're solving.
Oh, that's interesting. So you're like educating them so they understand the value of your solution.
Right.
Smart.
Building trust.
Yeah.
Positioning yourself as an expert.
Right. Makes you more credible.
The book also talks about preparing what it calls the 3 dimensions of negotiation in advance.
Okay, what are those?
So you have the setup, the structure, and then the actual discussion.
So like being prepared for every stage of the negotiation.
Exactly. And the concept of a buffer. So even in situations where it seems like it's win-lose, there's always some room for maneuver.
Right, some flexibility to find a compromise.
Exactly. And then there's framing.
Yeah.
So you present the situation in a way that makes the prospect feel like they're the ones pursuing you.
Ah, smart. Making them feel like they're in control.
And the principle of reciprocation. So you do something for them, and they feel obligated to do something for you.
Like if you give them a free sample, they're more likely to buy the product.
Exactly.
Interesting.
Even small gestures can be powerful. And then there's this idea of a damaging admission.
A damaging admission. What's that?
So this is where you openly acknowledge a flaw or a risk associated with your offer.
Wait, why would you do that?
It seems counterintuitive, right?
Yeah.
But it can actually increase your credibility. The book gives this example of landlords who tell potential tenants about the risk of rock slides.
Rock slides. Why?
Because they're being honest
Oh, I see.
and upfront, and that builds trust.
Yeah, it makes sense. People appreciate honesty, even if it's not always positive.
Exactly. Ultimately, the book frames the whole sales process as removing barriers to purchase.
Barriers to purchase.
So these are the things that are preventing someone from buying. It could be cost, doubts about whether the product will work for them, or just the feeling that they can wait.
Right. All the things that make people hesitate.
Exactly. So a good salesperson identifies these barriers and then systematically removes them.
So it's like problem solving in a way.
It is. And one way to remove these barriers is through risk reversal.
Risk reversal, okay.
So this is like offering a trial period, a money-back guarantee.
Oh, right. So they can try it out without feeling like they're taking a big risk.
Exactly. And once you've made the sale, don't forget about reactivation.
Reactivation.
So this is reaching out to past customers to encourage them to buy again,
Right.
because it's much easier to sell to someone who already knows and trusts you.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, so we've made the sale. What's next?
Well, now you actually have to deliver.
Yeah.
And make sure your customers are happy. This is what the book calls value delivery.
Value delivery. Got it.
And it really emphasizes that a successful business consistently delivers on its promises.
Right. You have to do what you say you're going to do.
Exactly. If you don't, you're basically a scam artist.
Yeah, no one wants to do business with a scam artist.
Value delivery is everything that happens after the sale. From processing the order to shipping the product to providing customer support. It's all the behind-the-scenes stuff.
Right. The stuff that makes the whole experience smooth and enjoyable for the customer.
Exactly. And the book highlights the Toyota production system
Oh.
as a great example of a company that's always looking for ways to improve its value stream.
It's value stream.
So that's all the steps involved in delivering value to the customer. And when it comes to getting your product to the customer, there's direct-to-user distribution and intermediary distribution.
Okay, so like selling directly to the customer versus selling through a retailer.
Exactly. And there are trade-offs with each approach. Direct gives you more control, but intermediary can give you more reach.
Right. It's about finding the right balance for your business.
Right. And the book talks about the expectation effect and how exceeding customer expectations can create a really positive impact.
Oh, yeah. Like when you get something extra that you weren't expecting. It makes you feel good.
Yeah, like, getting free upgraded shipping
Exactly.
from Zappos. But beyond those moments of delight, it's all about predictability and reliability.
Right. Consistency is key.
Consistency is key. So customers can count on you to deliver what you promised
Makes sense.
without any errors or delays.
So how do you improve your ability to deliver value?
Well, the book talks about throughput,
Yeah.
which is basically how fast your system is creating value.
Yeah.
And then there's duplication. So that's the ability to, reproduce your offering.
Like a factory producing thousands of identical products.
Exactly. And scalability.
Mm-hmm.
So that's taking duplication and amplifying the results through automation.
Okay.
Like how Starbucks can produce a high volume of customized drinks really quickly.
Right. They have that system down to a science.
Right. And then there's investing in what the book calls force multipliers.
Force multipliers. Okay.
So these are tools or resources that amplify your efforts.
So like a construction company using a backhoe instead of shovels.
Exactly. And then there's value capture,
Okay. So like making sure you're charging enough for your product or service.
but not being greedy.
Right. Finding that sweet spot.
There's a balance. The book tells this story about a Harvard MBA who gives advice to a fisherman.
Oh, yeah.
The MBA tells the fisherman he should expand his business, hire people, get more boats, franchise. And the fisherman asks why.
And what does the MBA say?
The MBA says, well, then you can go public, make a lot of money, and retire early.
Okay.
And the fisherman says, and then what? And the MBA says, well, then you can do whatever you want. You can fish all day if you want.
Haha, that's a great story.
And the fisherman is like, but that's what I'm already doing.
I love it. It highlights the importance of knowing what you actually want out of life.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's not always about maximizing profit. Sometimes it's about sufficiency.
Right. Having enough.
So, to understand the health of a business, you need to understand some basic financial principles.
Oh.
And the book starts by making this distinction between cash and profit.
Okay, cash versus profit.
Cash is just the money flowing in and out.
Right, like what's in your bank account.
Profit is what's left over after you account for all your expenses.
So you can have cash flow but still be losing money.
You can.
That's important to remember.
It is. And the book gives an example of a retailer who buys their inventory on credit.
Oh, yeah.
So they might have a lot of cash on hand initially,
Yeah.
but when those bills come due,
They could be in trouble.
to get a snapshot of a company's financial health, there's the balance sheet. And the basic formula is assets minus liabilities equals owner's equity.
Okay.
And to understand a company's performance over time, you look at the income statement, which shows revenue minus expenses equals profit.
Got it.
Or loss.
Right.
The book also mentions using financial ratios to do some quick checks,
Like what kind of ratios?
like your profit margin, your debt level,
Yeah.